Germany wants compulsory tests, Sweden lets everyone in. Travel rules in the EU are confusingly diverse. Where are the risks areas and who defines them? Germany is advancing within the European Union. From next week on, travelers from risk areas will be required to take a corona test. It is the first country to make these tests mandatory. However, there is already a smorgasbord of entry and exit regulations in the 27 EU member states. Since the normalization of travel was recommended by a joint EU decision in mid-June, each country has devised its own rules. Sweden and Greece have no restrictions on entry from other EU countries. Latvia requires Belgian immigrants to quarantine for 14 days. Belgium in turn classifies Latvia as an orange risk area. Quarantine is recommended but not required. In contrast, entry into Belgium from certain areas of Portugal and Spain is strictly prohibited. The list of travel restrictions can go on very long. Each EU country follows its own rules and definitions. Some countries require a contact tracking form, some prefer to register online prior to travel. Some allow entry if there is a negative corona test from their home country. Also contributing to the confusion is the fact that there is no uniform EU definition of what a risk area is. In Germany, the Robert Koch Institute defines these areas. At the moment, the German authority in the EU is only ejecting Luxembourg as a risk area. Northern Spain is not one of these risk areas defined in Germany. Visitors from there do not have to undergo the compulsory tests mentioned at the beginning. But people from Luxembourg do. Many countries see parts of Romania and Bulgaria as corona hotspots and have restricted travel accordingly. The European Centre for Disease Control, the ECDC, in Stockholm is trying to provide a Europe-wide overview of the infection process, which allows conclusions to be drawn about risk areas. This EU authority collects the data from all member states and issues a card every day broken down by region and infection rate. Today's map shows that according to the ECDC, the main focus of corona infections is in northern Spain, Lisbon, Flanders and then especially Antwerp, Luxembourg, Sweden and parts of Romania and Bulgaria. Germany, Italy, France, the Baltic states, Greece have had less than 20 new infections per 100,000 inhabitants in the past 14 days. This is the value that the ECDC sets as a yardstick. This warning value is also not handled consistently. In some countries it is 16 or as in Germany 50 new cases per 100,000 inhabitants. A look at the map of the ECDC shows that not entire EU countries but only limited regions are affected by rising corona numbers. Therefore, it makes no sense to close the borders to complete states. It is more important to find regional epidemics, isolate them and find chains of infections across national borders. From the series of border closings in March, April and May, the EU countries had learned to act more regionally in a possible second wave. Accordingly, German Federal Interior Minister Horst Seehofer from the CSU announced on Monday in Berlin that there would be no further border closings or stricter border controls. We had huge political problems, said Seehofer. He wants to avoid that with a possible new wave. Not the travel itself, but the behavior of the vacationists in the target country and at home are the problem, according to the pandemic experts. The question of whether there is already a second wave of pandemics in the EU cannot be answered easily. It is true that the number of infections tends to go up according to the EU Epidemic Center, the ECDC. However, conditions such as March and April are still a long way off. At that time, the peak of daily infections was 35,000. Today, there are around 10,000. The lowest was at the end of June at less than 5,000. The EU is still doing well compared to other regions of the world. Around the world, around 200,000 people are infected with coronaviruses every day. The majority of the infections take place in America and Asia. 5% of infections worldwide are registered in the EU. These figures mean that almost all countries outside Europe have been declared a risk area in Germany. Travel to the USA, Brazil, India or South Africa is strongly discouraged. Upon return, quarantine and a compulsory corona test are expected next week. The travel arrangements with the rest of the world are, of course not surprising, not uniform in the EU. Many countries allow tourist entries from countries such as Canada, Australia, Uruguay or Thailand. Hungary, Poland, Belgium and Latvia, on the other hand, also exclude entries from these countries. The borders of these states are completely closed, while Portugal allows entry from Brazil and the USA under certain conditions. The EU is far from uniform rules for travel in the times of Corona. The EU Commission in Brussels can only coordinate a little and have data collected. The member states are still solely responsible for health protection and entry regulations at their borders. That's the downside of sovereignty. A committee meets in Brussels every 2 weeks to advise on easing travel restrictions, for example to the USA, Russia or China. There's little hope of normalization in the near future, says an EU official. As long as the virus is out there, almost everything stays sealed. And if you now want to know more about European politics from a German point of view, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here in the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!